have a lid on his container, his water container, so I'm like, don't go all over with your hands. You'll be spilling water.
Good evening. I'd like to welcome everyone to the East Dubuque City Council meeting. It is Monday, November 18th. I ask that you please turn your cell phones off during the meeting and please be quiet during discussions. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Twenty-four 1115 call to order.
Belkin.
Here.
Bergmeyer.
Here.
Dagenhart.
Here.
Mayor Digman.
Here.
Fleur.
Here.
Meyer.
Here.
Roby.
Here.
Attorney Hess.
Here.
24-1116, conduct a public hearing regarding a plan to issue not to exceed $4,500,000 in aggregate principal amount of the city's general obligation bonds, alternate revenue source in the city of East Dubuque. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This hearing will come to order. Let the record reflect that this is a public hearing being held pursuant to the requirements of Sections 10 and 20 of the Bond Issue Notification Act of the State of Illinois as amended. Notice of this hearing was published on October 30th, 2024 in the Galena Gazette, a newspaper of general circulation in the city. This is a hearing regarding a plan to issue not to exceed $4,500,000 in aggregate principal amount of bonds. The proceeds of the bonds will be used for the purpose of financing A, capital improvements within the city, including but not limited to capital improvements to the fire station, including in connection with said work, acquisition of all land or rights in land, mechanical, electrical, and other services necessary, useful, or advisable thereto, and B, the purchase of a fire truck. The bonds will be issued by the city in accordance with the provisions of Section 15 by the Local Government Debt Reform Act of the State of Illinois as amended, and shall constitute a general obligation of the city payable from either the distributive share of incremental taxes derived from the 2021 City of East Dubuque, I downtown, 1 downtown, 2 Highway 35, and 3 Highway 20 tax increment financing redevelopment project area. All collections distributed to the city from the retailer's occupation taxes, service occupation taxes, use taxes, and service use taxes, and 3 all ad valorem taxes of the city for which its full faith and credit have been irrevocably pledged, unlimited as to rate or amount. This public hearing is required by Sections 10 and 20 of the Bond Issue Notification Act of the State of Illinois as amended. Now is the time for residents, taxpayers, and other interested persons to express their views for or against the proposed plan of financing, the issuance of bonds, and the purpose of the issuance of bonds. So at this time, if there's anybody opposed to this bond referendum, they can come up and speak. If there's anybody for that would like to speak. The hearing officer concluded the public hearings regarding the plan to issue not to exceed $4,500,000 in aggregate principal amount in the city's general obligation bonds, alternate revenue source. Let the record further reflect this public hearing was concluded at the hour of 6:04 p.m. on November 18th, 2024. That's it. (24-1172) staff report, city manager report.
Thank you, Mayor. I've got update on the K-9 program. We have come up with an agreement with the county that, we have come to an agreement with the county to sell both Odin and the vehicle that's been modified for K-9 use to the county. I think we've come up with an agreement that's both fair to the county and the city, and has the advantage of keeping Odin in the area and keeping him working for us. So under the agreement, which is subject to approval by the county board, we would receive $7,000 for Odin and $48,000 for the vehicle, 3-year-old vehicle. So given all of the modifications that were due on that were required on the vehicle and its lack of use as configured for other law enforcement duties, I think this is was a good outcome. And the money, we want to assure everyone that the money will be kept and put into the contribution account so that we're able to use it to restart the program as soon as we're able. So I think that's a good outcome there. Second item, the line of credit. Our 6-month effort to establish a line of credit with the bank is finally paid off. We were approved for a $500,000 line of credit. As you remember, the board approved us to get a line of credit, and the mayor and I asked that there be a provision in there that we are required to come to the council in order to access the line of credit. So the purpose of it is, in the event of a disaster, we've got the ability to meet it, but the more likely need is that it will allow us to invest more of the city's cash to get interest on it and have the ability, if something unexpected were to happen, to be able to cover it until we get money out of the investments. So it doesn't have to be used, doesn't cost us anything, but it's there. The pumping, the new pump for the 6th Street pumping station will be installed soon. That should greatly improve the reliability for the system should we have another flood event. And we've had several years of the pump breaking down when we needed it most. So that improves our preparation for future issues. Construction update. You probably noticed the New Era building has been delivered and is in place. They should be opening in December. The Bridge City Collective, the other one downtown, is the plumbing and electrical are done, and the walls are being completed, drywalled. The 90 Cincinnati, the Culbies, the foundation is poured, and I think they're ready to begin construction on the building itself. The police station, the rain is on the outside of the building and not the inside. So we're very pleased about that, and we're moving ahead with construction there. 166 Cincinnati, the other property that we sold, has plans for an entertainment venue that are in with our engineers being reviewed for approval of a building permit. The duplex is moving ahead nicely. They're ready to shingle the roof in the back. I believe they've been repairing the windows. They've got on the 60 days until December 10th, but they've cleared out the inside. They're making good progress down there. The Menominee Street properties that we've been dealing with for seems like years, I guess it is years, have been sold and are being cleared out as we speak. And those buildings will be, as I understand it, rebuilt for housing. The Leibold property, the headquarters being constructed on the state line. They've submitted their plans for the headquarters to us so that we can review them with plans for a building permit, in the hopes or the belief that we're going to be able to get an agreement for annexation with them, and so their construction will come under our authority. So that is my report.
Thank you. I just have a couple things. Pam wanted me to remind all the liquor license holders that the license applications are due back by the end of business next Monday, November 25th. And then also Representative Tony McCumbee will have traveling office hours Tuesday, November 26th from 11 a.m. to 12:30 p.m. at the East Dubuque District Library. So that's November 26th for Representative Tony McCumbee. Alderperson report. Belkin?
Nothing tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you. Bergmeyer?
Nothing, Mr. Mayor.
Degenhart?
Nothing at this time, Mayor.
Thank you. Fluer?
Nothing.
Thank you. Meyer?
Nothing.
Thank you. Roby?
Car down underneath the East Dubuque Bridge on that little lot behind our place. There's a silver SUV that has been back there for about a year. It's got flat tires and it looks terrible. Can we have someone look into it? It's got Iowa plates on it.
Luke?
That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you. City Attorney Hess?
Nothing to report. Bob covered everything in the city manager's report that I had to report on, so
Sorry.
lots of positive work. So.
That's good. Chief Kavasic? All right. Public Works? Tony?
Nothing.
Thank you. Chief Hine?
I just want to recognize Tom Lang. He retired from the department on last week. He had 30 years in. Started as a firefighter, paramedic. He was assistant chief for 15 years, and ended with as being a firefighter EMT.
All right. 24-1118, speakers from the floor. None noted this evening. 24-1119, consent agenda.
Still moved. Second.
Roll call.
Belkin?
Aye.
Bergmeyer?
Aye.
Degenhart?
Aye.
Fluer?
Aye.
Meyer?
Aye.
And Roby?
Aye.
Twenty-four 1120, discussion of quarterly budget report in the city of East Dubuque.
Thank you, Mayor. Move on to. Oh, geez, how'd that get up there? I'm sorry.
Must be something wrong with the computer.
Rub it in.
It's broke.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I can't get it down. Joke's on me. Sorry, it was supposed to be just a quick joke.
Wow, it shut down your whole system.
That wasn't good.
Yeah, just hit don't save.
Sorry, everybody. That was something for a little bit of humor.
Just hit delete, Bob.
It doesn't change the past. I don't know why
There
that
was a
picture.
don't save up there before.
Exactly.
Right.
That is called karma.
That'll teach you.
It will not go away.
It's gone.
Sorry. Kind of not sorry, but a little bit
Just
sorry.
wanted to leave it up there a little longer.
All right, so on to the really fun stuff, the budget. All right, so this is the second quarterly budget, and so at the 6 month mark, if you recall, back in April, we talked about we're going to have to make some adjustments to the budget. We're kind of going without a lot of history because of the financial situation we were in. So we did an update at 3 months. Now we've got another update at 6 months. My accounting teachers would hate this because I've tried to make this something that's more useful for us as a policy document than by the technical accounting aspect. But the bottom line is that we're in pretty good shape, and I will run through the major issues. So the first item you see on there, all property taxes are 3% below estimates. I didn't change the number because we've got one more payment coming in, and in looking at past property tax payments, they weren't the same for each payment. We have payments in June, July, August, September, and November. And so we've got 4 of the 5. When the 5th one comes in, we'll know where we stand. But I'm just letting folks know it doesn't have a huge impact on any individual part of the budget because it's spread all through the budget. But there's that. So otherwise, so the Q column, this column labeled Q is the budget that you approved in April. This budget, the next budget in S, are the changes to that budget. So if it wasn't a significant difference in my analysis of where we were standing, I didn't make a change. If I thought it was a significant difference, then I put in a new number in the current budget. So going down to interest income, I've increased that both because we were taking in a higher number, but also with the line of credit and the increase in cash, we anticipate being able to get a higher interest rate. So that is reflective of that. And so the bottom line there, if you look in the next line, T over here, that's the difference between the two. So we're estimating an increase of $16,400 under the operations side, the city hall side of the budget. Police, I didn't make changes. The numbers appear to be within reasonably close to where we are, but also it's a little bit disruptive with the open positions we've had in the police department. And so we'll get a better idea of that one as we go forward. Fire, these guys really gave me a hard time with the budget because they brought in a $400,000 donation. And so what I did was included the $400,000 donation in the budget. And then later when we get to, in the revenue side, when we get to the expenditures, you'll see that about $192,000 of that is spent, and then another $93,000 is down payment on the next fire truck. So those are, we have revenue that's higher than budgeted, and we have most of that revenue having been spent already. So about $115,000 to $125,000 difference in revenue above the expenditures. So we can anticipate that the rest of that will be spent during this fiscal year. Does that make sense to everybody? I did not include in here either end of the new fire truck purchase, the $650,000, because both the truck and the loans for it were cancel each other out. So while that's an increase in spending and revenue, it would just kind of complicate the analysis. So I did not include those in the numbers. Going down, when you get down to the total for the for it all, for operations, we're basically plus 28,000 in there. So moving on to water, here would be what I was warning about in April, that we would have to make some adjustments just based on the information that we had at the time. I miscalculated on what the capital receipts would bring in. So they have not been bringing in as much as we anticipated. I think that's my error. So I've lowered the number to what I think we're going to hit. And so we're, that water receipts comes out about 39,000 less than anticipated. About 34 of that is, or actually all of that, basically all of that is the change in the capital receipts line, adjusting that for it. I think what I did was overestimated the out-of-city capital increase because only Frentress Lake went up as much as the others. So we had several different things going on in that. And so anyway, that's there as that's the only major change I think that's based on a bad budget number. Moving down to the police, now we're on to the expenditures. There's not much for expenditure change on the operations side, the city hall side. So I'm projecting about $4,200 less in spending than was anticipated. So a negative number in column T now is a good thing. It's a reduction in expenditures. So the police budget, this is adjusted for something we're going to be doing later on tonight and discussing. I'm not anticipating, I'm not prejudging what your vote's going to be. I'm just showing how that bonus program would play out within the confines of the budget. So the overtime budget, as you can see, is we're projecting it to be, kind of blown based on the loss of officers. Being down 2 officers caused an increase in overtime. I think we're starting to address that now with Officer Gray on board, but it won't really be fully affected until he is through his transition here on board. So with those changes, you have an $11,000 increase in the police budget. But I would note that the budget for the actual budget for the police department for 2023 was $859,000. And the actual for 24 was $786,000. And even with these changes that we're talking about in the police budget and the increase in overtime, we're anticipating that budget to be $721,000. So even with all the changes, we're $140,000 below what the budget was 2 years ago. As you know, prices have risen in that time frame. So that budget is well below its historic levels. Fire, I didn't change much on the fire because there's an interplay between the ambulance and the fire department, but that appears to be tracking pretty well. Public Works, major change in Public Works is the increase in health insurance, and that is caused by retiree health insurance that wasn't anticipated in the budget that was approved. But between that and other things that are running under budget in that budget area, the overall budget, even with the retiree health insurance, is $12,000 below what we budgeted in April. So if you take all of the general expenditure budgets together, we're about 5,600 below the budget that was approved in April, even with the changes that we show up above. I didn't show as many of the cuts and highlight those as I did the increases in expenditures, because I think people are generally more interested in increases than they are in decreases. But I'm happy to discuss any of those as we go. They're generally generated by, what I did was looked at our monthly expenditures and monthly revenue, and then looked at what the differences were for things that were happening. For instance, in Public Works, we had an extra employee on in May. So there, if I want to take an average of what the rest of the year is going to be, I take the average since that time and then add the difference for May. And then I can get a pretty good number on salaries. Same thing for the other budget items, insurance and so on down the line. Fuel is tracking where we're going to get be a little bit less in both Public Works and Police. So that's part of the benefit we have. The flood budget is primarily that's up very much higher than anticipated, about $14,000. But that has to do with $25,000 for a new pump on 6th Street pumping station, and then the fact that the budget appears to be better, so we're pretty close on the rest of the budget. But then we have to remember that we've already had the flood that we would have counted for next spring. And so what I did was I basically took the expenditures that we made for the flood that we had in July and assumed we're going to get another situation like that in the spring. So the extra one was the July. And so we still have to anticipate the same level of flooding that we would normally anticipate. So I've taken that into account on that budget, and the rental should, I think we will save some on rental just because we've got that new pump in there, and we have less likelihood of problems. Going down to the playground, you all know about that one. The increase that we had at the playground, that is. So all of that is money that was counted as deficit in the city budget because we didn't spend that money in previous budgets. So while it is an expenditure that is above our budgeted level for this year, all of that money that's above the budgeted level counts toward reducing our city deficit of $1 million that we were dealing with.
So we don't have to do an amendment or anything on that?
It's all money that we have. We anticipated some of it. So I budgeted above the level of revenue for the year, but I didn't budget as much as we ended up spending. And I think, so there is a employee component of that I lowered, but I still left in there because our folks did do some of the work there. And I don't know if we're going to bother with it, but that could be applied to Public Works. Moving down, itemized. So we do have additional dollars. I'm not going to spend much time on the TIF budgets because we didn't really anticipate what the budgets were going to be in those areas. But all of the money that's spent in TIF, again, goes against the deficit that we have. So we are reducing the deficit with those expenditures. On the street side, because we take street funding from a number of different areas, we will have another street budget coming in the spring, at least to fill cracks and things like that, but potentially to do some more improvements. Moving on to the water expenditures, if you look at my little star up there, the items that are starred are heavily impacted by the level of water main breaks that we've had. And so that's a deciding factor in that. Additionally, the health insurance is impacted by retiree health insurance, which wasn't anticipated in the budget. And so you can see the things that are starred. Those are all items that go toward the water main breaks. So all told in that budget, we've reduced a number of other things so that the increase in that budget is only $25,000. When $10,000, we have a $10,000 increase just for retiree insurance and $37,000 for street work and almost $30,000 for utility costs. So again, if we didn't have the level of water main breaks that we had, that budget would be reduced from April. We did have to kind of make a guess in April as to whether last year was a normal year for water main breaks or an outlier. And I would say that I thought it was more of an outlier because of the difference from the previous couple of years to last year. We had a big spike, and I thought that spike will come down. This year's showing that maybe it's not such an outlier. So we could probably anticipate these kind of levels until after next year when we get the streets that are having the most problems fixed. But those are all in process right now. The sewer budget is pretty boring, but you do have the increase in overtime, and that overtime increase is driven again by water main breaks. So when you get to the bottom line, this is where it gets to be a little bit hard to completely track, but we anticipated on the operations side that we would be in the black by $413,810 if you look in line Q, column Q. We now anticipate that we would finish the year $772,000 essentially in the black. That's not a real number because you have the increase in the donation amount of the $400,000, and that being offset by that $280,000 plus or minus number in expenditures that have already been made. So if you would actually reduce that 771 by that by the difference between those two, so 120,000. So even with that, our anticipation would be that the budget will come out instead of 413,000. We should come out over 500,000. I'll say conservatively, we should come out 500,000 to the good on the expenditure versus revenue side on the general fund. Does that make sense at all? Yeah, then when you get to the enterprise fund, you'll see that the net revenue is down by that 34. Again, that's the error in the capital side, and the expenditures are up by 55,000. That's mainly water main. So we were anticipating finishing the year $184,705 in the black. that number we anticipate now will be more like 95,000 in the black. So we're still in the black, but not quite as healthy as we hoped for at this point. So that would be my presentation.
Well, I think the other thing to point out with the, you know, I know we don't talk about the dispensaries and stuff like that. Another one coming online, none of those numbers were projected into any of this.
So the only thing that's projected on, that has to do with the dispensary is a license, which we know we're gonna have. But there is no tax revenue from the additional dispensaries that's figured in here at all. And that would be 3% on the cannabis tax and 1.5% on the sales tax. So if you take, the easiest way to look at the impact of the dispensaries on the budget is to look at the cannabis tax amount, take half of that, and that's the sales tax that's attributable to the cannabis businesses. So, yeah, this is without anticipating any of that or the other improvements that have gone on in the city.
I'm just gonna say this is the way it's supposed to be done. You know, I mean, we wanted a system where we can report quarterly to us, to the council, and be able to keep track of where we're at, and this is great work.
There's still nothing perfect in it, but it ain't bad.
Nothing's ever perfect, Bob.
All right, we're gonna move on. And any other further discussion, questions for Bob? All right, we're gonna move on. 24-1121, discussion and possible action to approve a resolution authorizing execution for the sale of surplus property in the city of East Dubuque.
So you've seen the list. These are items that are that we're not using anymore. And in some cases, we can get a little bit of money for them. In other cases, the money that we get for them is probably less important than the space we clear up. But the main one on here that's new to us is are the jail cells in the police station. We know there is a market for these. I don't know where that market is. You know, if there's people that want to, you know, would have a bar, or people that just like to collect things. But there is a market for those. We do have to get those jail cells out of there. Whoever buys them is going to have to be responsible for getting them out of the building. And so the other things I think are pretty self-explanatory. The SCBA, we already proved. So that'd be all I'd have to say on that, I guess.
I can read the list off real quick. It's jail cells, a Polaris 500 four-wheeler, a 1988 Charles Mach trailer, a 2008 Timco Sweeper International, a 2008 F-650 bucket truck with no title, 5 military 4-inch fuel transfer pumps, a military pressure washer, and a Homotro core extrication tools, spreader, cutter, ram, hoses, and generator, now owned by it. So that's the list of stuff that we're going to be declaring surplus.
And in addition to that, we prepared that indemnity agreement, so any person that does purchase surplus property, you know, something like the Polaris, once they agree to purchase it, it's theirs as is. We're not responsible for anything that might go wrong with it. So they'll have to indemnify us for the sale of these items once it's in their possession and purchased by whoever purchases it, so.
So are these sales would happen how?
Various means for the different things. Some things we might just put up and sell. Some things that are more valuable might be bids. But so this is the first step, being able to just get them out there and try to figure out, like I say, with the jail cells, we got to figure out what the market is and then how to approach it.
I can help with that.
I want to approach daycare centers or.
Any further discussion or questions in regards to this?
He was a comedian here.
If not, can we have a motion?
Second.
Roll call.
Bergmeyer,
Aye.
Dagenhart. Fleur. Meyer.
Aye.
Roby.
Aye.
Belkin.
Aye.
24-1122, discussion and possible action to approve an amendment to ordinance for self-storage facilities in the city of East Dubuque.
So on this one, as you know, we've got a interested party going through the annexation process to bring a self-storage unit into the city, which of course would increase tax base for the city. One thing that they were desiring is a change in our code related to outdoor storage. We've got a provision that applies only for outdoor self-storage facilities and prevents any outside storage at those. The fact that it doesn't apply to the rest of the city, makes me think that it's something that's worthwhile amending. And so we're proposing an amendment that would allow the storage, so outside storage of boats, RVs, and other vehicles may be allowed in areas in which it will not create a public nuisance. We've got public nuisance defined in our code. This prohibition applies to self-storage facilities. So it's within the self-storage area of the code. And so we're recommending, so that allows us to have oversight of it. It allows us to treat anything that looks bad as a nuisance and be able to clean it up. But it also allows them to do the storage in a way. The unit up there is pretty much blocked off from most visibility in the area they want to have it, is blocked from visibility by the buildings they already have up there. So I think storage is limited to those areas that nobody's going to notice.
This is not the only self-storage place we have in East Dubuque, right? Isn't Walloo's out on the highway part of ours? Isn't that in the city limits too?
One is, yeah.
Okay.
So what creates a public nuisance?
I was going to ask, I think we could reword this a little bit. I don't know how anybody else feels, but other than just public nuisance, because I know back in, I think it was like 2013 or 14, Walloo wanted to do, because he had done some outside storage up there and he wanted to do more, and people filled the thing. They did not want it out there. But if we go forward with this, I would like to see this reworded, that maybe the RVs and vehicles are put to the back of a property where they're not roadside. So if anybody drives by them, they're visible. Also, we should probably add no appliances, no garbage, no, because I know this is new owners, but I know up at that one before, we've had problems with
Yeah.
them having furniture outside and everything else.
Well, but this states outside storage of boats, RVs, and other vehicles.
But you got to make sure they're not wrecked vehicles. We should probably add in there that they're operable.
So, so my point would be, I guess, that the nuisance provision is what we use to keep people from having junk in their yard. And so, if it's, we chose the language because it was something that was defined and that we did have code that we were able to access to hold people accountable for basically junk.
But we have other nuisances going on in town that we're not handling. So how are we going to handle this? I just think we would be better off to define it a little bit more so that we have a little bit more control. I'm not saying this is a bad idea.
No.
I just think
I'm not sure. I don't think we get more control with the change, but obviously, you can work on the wording that you want. But I think that the nuisance provision gives us the leeway Chief, we have leeway to basically it's a subjective case that you're making. And if you try to make the subjective case too objective in the code, I'm not a lawyer, but it seems to me that you might end up limiting your ability to do some things. But whereas we've got the ability now to treat anything that we view as a problem as something that we can write a ticket for. And in this case, it's not even just write a ticket for, they're banned from being able to have it. So it's not the same as having a washing machine in your backyard. This is a business that operates under our authority, and if we tell them they can't, then they can't. So I would just put that out there. If you start getting into detail, I think you're going to find yourself having to really go into detail. But I guess I'd leave it to.
Yeah, and, our ordinance defines nuisance pretty broadly so that we can capture things that, we don't have to define everything in the code. So it's whatever is injurious to health, indecent or unreasonably offensive to the senses, an obstacle to the free use of property, unreasonably interferes with comfortable enjoyment of property. So, we have an ordinance that already addresses that.
So you can do it, but I guess I come from the side that you take the more general authority that gives you broad authority because it's general over trying to define everything, and then you have the case of you missed something, and now they can say, well, you defined washing machines, but you didn't say dryer, or you defined, operating, but you didn't define it's got to have its wheels. And I think you can, sometimes defining everything in detail doesn't give you more authority, it gives you less authority. So I would just put that out there, but if somebody's got an amendment,
I'll make a motion we accept as written.
Have a motion, need a second? Roll call.
Dagenhart.
Aye.
Fleur.
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
Roby.
Nay.
Belkin.
Aye.
Bergmeyer.
Aye.
Twenty-four 1123, discussion and possible action to approve law enforcement merit and service award in the city of East Dubuque.
So, as everyone knows, we've been trying to deal with the ability to replace our law enforcement officers. We have, since I came here, we have reduced the total police force from 7 to 6. I think we're doing well at 6. Doesn't give us very much margin for error, but I think we've been able to do that, and we've been able to save money in the police budget by doing that. We've had a couple of situations that have come up recently that have both in having to release an officer and having another officer leave that leave us very shorthanded. We've been able to hire one officer, but I will tell you that the applications that we have had for service here have been pretty sparse. We offered a $20,000 signing bonus and transferability of experience directly in for pay and for vacation. So that if you had 10 years experience, you moved in here and you got 10 years experience, you didn't have to start over. You didn't have to, if you were a licensed certified officer. The result from that is that we got one certified officer to apply. We had another one who almost actually laughed at me, and another one that that's all we've had for experience. We got this person without experience, but that's going to be a matter of at least 6 months and more before we can have somebody like that up and running and serving the community. So we really were trying to get somebody with experience. So that's one side of it, is the recruitment side. The other side is the retention side, and I think the retention side is really the biggest. As I've analyzed this, that's our biggest problem. I've heard since I came here from people saying, we keep an officer, we bring them in, we train them, we equip them, which costs quite a bit of money. We send them to 4 months of academy. We do 4 to 6 months of additional training with them. We get them all certified and up to speed, and after 3 or 4 years, we lose them. And we just can't seem to be able to keep officers past that kind of time frame. And so, in my opinion, when you have a problem, you look at what you can do about it, what things you have control over, and where you might have issues. In analyzing our situation as far as retention goes, if you take an officer who comes off probation and you compare him to an officer with 30 years experience, the difference in pay between them is about $3,500. If you look at any other occupation where you gain skill and effectiveness over time, you'll see that is a horribly compressed pay structure. And it's a pay structure that I would argue isn't intended to keep people working for you. It is intended to have you be the training ground for people. And whether it was intended or not, it's the effect of it is that we have become a place that trains police officers to work in other departments. The training of those officers is incredibly expensive. And I would like to end, to the extent that we're capable of it, the process here where we train people to work in other places. So I also am a firm believer in merit pay and merit awards, recognition of people, requiring them to meet a certain standard. And so I think when we look at those things together, we came up with a plan here. And so the first thing I do is you've got in front of you the cost of replacing a police officer. And so got, why is it going up there? So the cost to replace, why isn't that changing? Oh well, I've got a, so if you look at that sheet, what I did was, as everybody's familiar with, I always compare costs and benefits before we spend money. And what I did was looked at the cost where you just have a vacancy, like we had with the 2 different officers we've had since August, who have just left in an unexpected way. And took the cost of that, and then the cost of replacing an officer in a planned way. And that would be the case where an officer tells you they're going to retire in a year and gives you time to be able to run the process and replace them. The reality is probably somewhere in between. In many cases, you're probably going to you might get a month or two's notice on somebody, but you probably rarely get the person who's going to give you a year's notice, especially in our current system where we have one officer with over 30 years experience, and then aside from the chief, we go down to below 10 years experience for other officers. So that's another proof of the problem we have. But you see that I took cost of recruiting, advertising, overtime during the recruitment process, which is usually at least a month. In government, it often goes a lot longer than a month. And I would tell you that we've been over a month now, and we haven't gotten the 2 officers to apply that we wanted to have. So we would still be in that period, and that would be a much bigger number than the 6,000 that is recorded. I took these as officers at the 5-year rate, which is around where most of our officers are. Overtime during the 6 months of academy and training, and then the pay for the officer who is undergoing academy and training for 6 months. Travel to, there's several locations where they could be trained. I just took 100-mile each leg. And then the cost of the academy. So the academy is about $7,000. The cost of overtime here during recruitment is $54,000. The cost of pay to the officer being trained is about $46,000. And these are pay and benefits. And if you plan for it, then you don't have to do the overtime during recruitment or the overtime during the academy. But your cost for training is higher because the officer is not on their own. So if an officer is being trained under the second person in a vehicle, then they can fill a shift, and that you would normally have 2 officers on. But if you're fully staffed, it doesn't do you any good to replace that officer with another one because you've got another officer who's working full-time. And so I accounted for that also. So the cost, if there's a vacancy that you didn't plan for, is about $118,000. The cost, if you planned for it in advance, is about $66,000. So the cost of the city is going to fall somewhere in between those two. And so there's the cost side of not fixing the problem. Then if you go to the bonuses, and what we would anticipate for the cost of the program, the proposal that I'm making here is that when the person's hired, they're eligible for a $2,000 bonus. Now, that would require, it would come at the end of the year, so they would be paid out at the end of our fiscal year, April 30th or thereabouts, prorated for the first year that somebody comes in. So they would get $2,000 when they're on probation at the end of their first year, if they have good, satisfactory evaluation. After 1 year, they would be eligible at the end of that year for a $3,000 per year bonus, up to 5 years. At 5 years, at the end of the year, they would be eligible for a $6,000 bonus. At 10 years, and they would be eligible for a $9,000 bonus at the end of the year. At 15 years, they'd be eligible for a $10,000. Up to 20 years. At 20 years, they're eligible for 11. And at 25, they're eligible for 12. So what this does is has a graduated improving benefit to remain employed. It also has a benefit to being to having good evaluations and the evaluation is something that Jeff has selected. And so you both have an incentive to perform well, and you have an incentive to remain employed with the city, and you've decompressed the salary structure, which currently is $3,500 between year 1 and year 25, as you can see on here. We have it doesn't improve any after that. We don't have any improvement after year 25 in the contract. So you can see it's $61,000 for base pay, $64,000. I should mention that the base hours here, 2,080 hours is a normal 40-hour work week full-time. 2,184 is full-time for our law enforcement officers because they work, a normal week is 42 hours a week. But then they also have overtime on holidays because they work holidays or 24/7, where the rest of us take off on the holiday, they're still working. So there's a cost in the contract to that. So we estimated the hours in a typical year for that, and that's how you get to the 2334. And so the base pay here is figured on that 2334, not on the typical 2080 for employees. So you can see that it goes from a $3,500 range to a $12,000 range, which, in addition to being effective, I think, in retention, it's also respectful of the commitment that people make to the city and the people of it. So the next document that you have is the analysis I did of the job postings on Indeed.com, and that's just a comparison of where we stand with the other departments within a 100-mile radius of Galena that have jobs posted on the site and had a pay range. So if it's red, it's got a range from starting salary to their top end. If it's red, it's we're better. We're with this bonus, we're better than them. Without the bonus, we're not generally. But I wanted to show that among the people that we're competing with for these jobs, this puts us not very high up, but competitive, I think, in the list of jobs. So that's why I am recommending we approve this. I think it'll be good for retention. I think it'll be good for excellence. And I think it'll be respectful of people making a commitment to the city and making a commitment to those people that we expect to make a commitment to us.
I'm gonna chime in just a little bit. I agree with you, Bob. For too long we've been a proving grounds and training center for other forces. The one thing, looking at hiring people nowadays, it's hard for us to say, hey, we're competing with a community 30 miles down the road that is fully staffed and isn't hiring. In all reality, we are competing against the other people that are hiring. And I just want to point that out. That's my take on it. I think this is a good commitment. I think it's something, you sit there and look at those numbers, it's no wonder that we haven't been able to maintain anybody.
That's the old story. If they go down the road and make more money, that's what happens. Bottom line.
Yeah.
So we gave a $20,000 sign-on bonus, and we only got one applicant. What's going to be any difference with this?
Well, because our signing bonus in the ad also had our pay range. And
I've looked at several pay ranges around our county, and we're pretty competitive in pay.
I guess it depends on who you're competing against.
Well, I don't know that we're competing cost-wise with Freeport at 23,000 population, Verona at 15,000 population, Mount Horeb at 7,000 population. You look at the population and their tax base compared to ours, we're not that far off.
I would argue that we're competing with what is Dubuque, 60,000? I would argue we're competing with 60,000 because we are several hundred yards from a city of 60,000. And if you look at where our problems are coming from and where our issues are with fights nearly every week this summer, those are fights that often started in Dubuque and came over here. Are there other issues? I'm sure there are, but there aren't many other issues that that I can address and have a hope of being effective. When we put it onto the Blue Line website, they didn't even they downplayed our pay range. It was there, but they downplayed it in the ad. So it was my hope that the sign-on bonus, and by the way, when you're getting the sign-on bonus, you're not, which is paid out over multiple years, you're not getting this bonus. I should point that out also.
That's what I was going to ask next,
So-
is if they get the 20, do they get the first year 2,000 on top of that?
So, yeah, no, they don't. And so, if you take where we're at right now, if everybody stayed on, that's what the final column is, the fiscal impact. This is figuring that we would hire a inexperienced person that we don't have on now at the 2,000 range. We've got one at the 1 to 5. We've got two at the 5 to 10, and then we've got Mickey at the 30 plus. So the total there is $30,000 of impact, and I would compare the $30,000 impact to a $90,000+ recruitment cost. And so, if we can avoid a recruitment every 3 years, then we're money ahead on just that comparison. But also, if Mickey left, then the total cost of this goes to $17,000 a year. So Mickey it's no secret that he doesn't make it any secret that he's considering retiring. And so that's another opening that we have to address. So
what's the compensation package for a 1-year police officer? Total compensation package. That's insurance, IMRF, and everything, without bonuses. Isn't it like $92,000?
$92,000 a year, yep.
That's a lot of money.
It is, but we're required to pay unemployment comp, workers' comp, FICA, and we do pay a generous health insurance. I would say that that's the only thing that's variable in it.
What about
and
IMRF? Do we not pay full IMRF?
We do pay, yeah. So, but I think you have to compare apples to apples. And I think when most people say what their salary is, they give their pay, their hourly rate at.
But the cost to the city is more than our hourly rate, is what I'm trying to
yeah.
look at.
Right.
And when I compare that to other communities, we are way over what other communities are.
But the cost of this program does not include any of, or there would be an IMRF and some of those costs would be on this. That's true. But again, it's a bigger issue.
So 92,000 for the first year, huh? With the
After probation,
Bonus.
oh, that's without.
Yes,
Okay.
that's without bonus.
after the probationary year. And so, I don't recall whether that was.
The other part of this, Bob, being a police for the day ain't no big deal anymore.
Well, Randy, yeah, that is another aspect is that if you are in this corner and you can be an officer in Wisconsin or Iowa, where you arrest people and they go to jail, that's
When is our union contract up?
May of 26.
So would it not be better to do next year a bonus and restructure our pay scale in the next union contract and use this as a bargaining chip. We don't have to open the union contract, right, to do this?
Correct.
Okay.
We have to do a memorandum of understanding with the union, just basically making them aware of it.
So
That's
wouldn't,
a good idea. If you want to keep people here, you got to make the thing right, and treat them right, and pay them right, and they'll stay.
oh, I agree with that.
Well, I went through 50 years of this. We've lost numbers and numbers of people that came here and got their training, and they haul ass.
But is this going to keep them?
When I got on the board, they were making $3.40 an hour here in East Dubuque, the police. $3.40 an hour, 50 years ago.
But I'm just asking, if we do a bonus for 1 year and when we go into contract negotiation, look at restructuring our pay, would that not be better than just bonus, 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 bonus?
Well, I think
I would rather pay bonuses than pay under the union contract because it allows us.
Using it as a bargaining chip for other things too.
I think you got a good
Well,
idea.
this allows us. This is at our discretion. It can be reduced or eliminated at the city's discretion. So, I don't think we lose the bargaining chip. And I would rather have more of our pay be based on merit and excellence than on a union contract.
How are we paying for this? How would we pay for this?
Well, we just went through the budget. We showed that we are in the black as a city. Even with this addition, with the budget we went through tonight figured these numbers into it. So the number you saw for the police budget is still $140,000 less than we were spending 2 years ago. And, there are people here who approved a budget that spent $140,000 more than this would be with the bonuses. And I would argue that a portion of those costs in previous years were due to the turnover that we had not addressed in the past.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, even if you just look at these numbers right here, what you put in front of us with the cost it's gonna cost the city when they leave at $118,000 compared to if they stay at $65,000. That speaks for itself right there.
We gave a $20,000 sign-on bonus and it really didn't do us any good.
Is this $20,000 in your cost planning, Bob? On this sheet right here, where the cost variance?
The 20,000 is a different issue.
It's a different issue.
That's for the hiring, but it would only decrease these numbers because, for instance, Officer Gray that we just hired is getting his sign-on bonus over 3 years, so he won't be eligible for this for 3 years.
If you want to keep them, you got to pay them.
Yeah.
I'll make the motion to accept your plan.
a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Fleur,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Roby,
Nay.
Belkin,
Aye.
Bergmeyer,
Aye.
and Dagenhart.
Twenty-four 1124 discussion and approval of IEPA PWSL 17-6364 in the amount of $10,628.93, including CFPS Incorporated invoice number 5 and Fisher Excavation pay application number 2, revised final in the city of East Dubuque.
So this is based on a change that came from the state on the total cost of the lead service line program, which the state is paying for. So if you look at the packet, it was a $24,000 issue, but we've already paid a portion of it. So the state just readjusted the other portion for the $10,000, which Again, it comes under the grant that they're paying for.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Meyer,
Aye.
Roby,
Aye.
Belkin,
Aye.
Bergmeyer,
Aye.
Dagenhart,
Aye.
and Fleur.
Aye.
24-1125, discussion and possible action to approve and authorize mayor and city clerk to certify and publish the annual treasurer's report for the city of East Dubuque for the fiscal year ending 4/30/2023.
This one, credit Gene for pointing out that, in all the changes that have happened over the last couple of years, we had missed putting this out for public viewing. And so we are catching up. So that's why you have 2 years worth of it. This is the posting that's required to meet the state law.
Any discussion?
No, a motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Roby,
Aye.
Belkin,
Aye.
Bergmeyer,
Aye.
Dagenhart,
Aye.
Fleur,
Aye.
Meyer.
Aye.
24-1126, discussion and possible action to approve and authorize mayor and city clerk to certify and publish the annual treasurer's report for the city of East Dubuque for the fiscal year ending 4/30/2024.
I'll make a motion to publish the annual treasurer's report for the city of East Dubuque fiscal year ending 4/30/24.
Second it, Mayor.
Roll call.
Belkin,
Aye.
Bergmeyer,
Aye.
Dagenhart,
Aye.
Fleur,
Aye.
Meyer, and Roby.
Aye.
24-1127, executive session for personnel matters. We need a motion.
So moved.
Roll call.
Bergmeyer,
Aye.
Dagenhart,
Aye.
Fleur,
Aye.
Meyer, Roby,
Aye.
Belkin.
Aye.
All right, there's no action coming out of executive session. So with that, 24-1129, we have a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Roll call.
Fleur,
Aye.
Meyer,
Aye.
Roby,
Aye.
Belkin,
Aye.
Bergmeyer,
Aye.
and Dagenhart.
All right, we are adjourned.